Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Welcome to the Alex Jones Show on this Monday, January 7th, 2013. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, sitting in for Alex today. We have an amazing show lined up for you for the next 3 hours. And the reason I'm here is because Alex is on a plane headed to New York. He's going to appear on the CNN broadcast tonight. I think it's at, 9 Central, 8 Eastern, I think is what it is, right? Anyway, Alex is going to be there with Piers Morgan, so we'll see how that goes. So I'm here covering for Alex today, and he called me before the show with some somewhat disturbing news as well. He has been detained and nearly arrested at the Austin airport, and he's going to be uploading a video later that will explain what happened. And I'm not going to go into any details right now, but he was very angry about how he's being treated as an American citizen, just trying to, get on an airplane. In any case, that's coming up later tonight. That'll probably make the InfoWars Nightly News, but in the meantime, let's continue. We've got some great guests coming up for you today. We've got Mark Baker from bakersgreenacres.com joining us at the bottom of this hour with an update on how the state of Michigan has been forcing farmers there to shoot their own pigs. And now an economic embargo of sorts has been enacted against Mark Baker and other farmers there. It's an all-out economic warfare against American patriots, okay? So anybody who tries to grow their own food, who tries to farm, who tries to exercise any kind of freedom whatsoever, whether it's free speech, food freedom, medical freedom, health freedom, you name it, they're all being assaulted, attacked at every angle imaginable. It's on. The war is on against the American patriots, and Mark Baker will be joining us with some more details on what's going on there. Also, in the next hour, we've got Jon Rappoport joining us with some breaking realizations about psychiatric drugs and how now these could be used. You see, the government has a record of prescription drugs, who's been prescribed all of these. It's a patient database of prescription records. And this database not only has your name in it, but also what you've been prescribed. So if you're taking antidepressant drugs, if you're taking mind-altering psychiatric drugs, if your children are taking drugs for ADHD or depression or anything, this is all being recorded by the government. And now that we've got new gun control, a new push, of course, happening in the Senate, thanks to people like Feinstein, your prescription drug records could be used to deny you your constitutional rights. All they have to do is claim that everyone who's taking antidepressant drugs is now, quote, mentally unfit to own a firearm, or to even perhaps invoke their Fifth Amendment rights or their First Amendment rights. Or basically they can just say, if you're taking these drugs, the Bill of Rights no longer applies to you. That's what they can say. So that is a very worrisome realization and a possible development in this gun control issue. And Jon Rappoport will be joining us to go over that. We've also got Richard Pearson popping in the next hour. He is the head of the Illinois State Rifle Association that just narrowly defeated yet another sneak attack gun control bill last night. Yeah, they're trying it at all hours now. It's like, I guess these lawmakers are staying up until 3 in the morning on a Sunday night to try to sneak a bill through that is completely unconstitutional, that would criminalize all citizens of Illinois who own firearms. It would criminalize the farmers and the ranchers and everyone in that state who legally owns firearms. But that bill was narrowly defeated last night. We'll get an update on that issue in the next hour. So stay with us here on the Alex Jones Show. All of that and much more straight ahead. We'll be right back. All right, we are live on this Monday, January 7th, yes, 2013. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, filling in for Alex Jones, who right now is on an airplane headed to New York to be on CNN tonight, the Piers Morgan show. Apparently, Alex is going to be there live, sitting with Mr. Morgan, Mr. Redcoat Morgan, the guy that has big successful petition calling for Morgan to be detained and kicked out of the country. That's a pretty good petition. But anyway, Alex is going to be sitting in there with him to have something that I'm sure will be a very mild conversation. And Alex, and by the way, that's going to be aired at, I think, let's see, let me get this right, 9 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Central. So I guess that makes it 6 p.m. Pacific, right? Did I get that right? I can do math today. What a wonderful Monday. Yeah, normally the math doesn't work till Tuesdays, right? Okay, so we have a lot of news coming up today. Obviously, the attack is on at every level, at every angle, on all Americans who believe in the Bill of Rights, who believe in the Second Amendment especially. And we've got a number of guests coming on today. And let me give you the rundown of what you're going to hear here for the next 3 hours. This is going to be an amazingly hard-hitting show. At the bottom of this hour, we've got Mark Baker coming on from Baker's Green Acres talking about the state of Michigan and how they are now putting in kind of economic embargo on small farmers who are trying to have a small family farm raising heirloom pigs, basically, and are being shut down by the state of Michigan. I know we've covered that issue before, but we have new information, new updates, and a worsening of the situation. So Mark will be here to give us that breakdown. Then the next hour, we've got Jon Rappoport from nomorefakenews.com joining us to give us more details on some additional breaking realizations that we had about the psychiatric patient prescription drug list. Look, the government is running a surveillance database on all the drugs that you are prescribed and purchased from pharmacies. That database could be turned into a no gun buy database. They could just say, they could invoke this by executive order, as has been admitted. The Washington Post over the weekend ran a story saying Obama was looking at executive order to just mandate new gun restrictions. And one of those, this wasn't in the Washington Post article, but this is in our article at Natural News, and it's posted on Infowars.com this morning, shows that drug database could be copied and pasted into the no gun buy database, which essentially is the FBI instant background check system, NICS, to deny people the right to buy firearms who have been on antidepressants. So that's coming up. That's a very big, important discussion, because it means that if you are taking psychiatric drugs, which includes antidepressants and other classes of prescribed pharmaceuticals, you could be denied your constitutional rights. Outside of law, just with a regulation, this would not even require senators or members of the House to vote for any new law. It wouldn't require anything at all. Just one stroke of the pen, or one stroke of the robotic pen from Obama, who doesn't even sign his own laws anymore, just has a robot do it. Hey, why not? Yeah, he's a puppet anyway. Just have a puppet sign it. Grab a puppet with a pen and sign the laws that way. All right, here's some other news. We've got welfare recipients. This is out of the New York Post. Welfare recipients take out cash at strip clubs, liquor stores, and X-rated shops. This was an exclusive story that broke on the New York Post over the weekend. And it turns out that if you track where these recipients are taking out their cash, they're taking out all their, with their EBT cards, their government paid welfare cards. They're taking it out at porn shops, hookah parlors. I never heard that term before. A hookah parlor. And even strip clubs. Man, I must be out of the loop on that whole realm, because I've never even heard of a hookah parlor. Anyway, I have heard of strip clubs, so that's where they're taking out their money and using it. So this is your money, folks. This is your taxpayer money when you go to work and you pay taxes, or they take it out, actually. They sort of confiscate taxes from you, and they're confiscating more now than ever before, thanks to the fiscal cliff negotiations. That money goes to these Obama-supporting EBT card owners who are using your money to to get it on at X-rated porn shops and strip clubs. Oh man, how insane has it become when our tax dollars go to fund the compassionate welfare of people who use your money to hire strippers and buy porn? Yeah, that's called welfare in the new United States of America. Enough on that. Let's move on. Large cities all over America are degenerating into gang-infested war zones. This is by Michael Snyder at Economic Collapse, and it's posted on Infowars.com as well. And in this article, he looks at the large cities and how they're breaking down into total criminal gang-infested chaos. And there was a story posted on Drudge over the weekend where a woman in Detroit called 911, reported that her car had been stolen and a firearm inside the car had obviously been stolen with the car. And the police, or 911, told her, call back later. Call back later. Yeah. Welcome to the suicide hotline. Please hold. It's like, forget about police in Detroit now. Didn't the police of Detroit even announce a few weeks ago for people not to even enter the city? Because if you dial 911, we can't help you. We can't even help you. You know, this reminds me of the movie RoboCop. Remember that? The original RoboCop movie from the 1980s? You got to go back and watch RoboCop because that was based in Detroit. And in the movie, the city of Detroit had degenerated into a total corporate gang crime zone where the corporations were running the drugs. Guess what's happened today? Exactly like that. The commercials in that movie, RoboCop, were so ridiculous then, they seemed outlandish, and today they are true. It's that movie was, it really foreshadowed the future. And this is happening in cities all across the country: East St. Louis, Detroit, LA, East LA, you name it. It is all degenerating as, but look, you can't blame the police on this, because the men and women in blue who are out there trying to do their jobs, and I know this because I've worked with these cops firsthand. They are trying to do their jobs. They are ridiculously underfunded. They are not given even enough money to buy the ammo that they need to police their local cities. They're denied their own gear in many cases. When I was working with the police in Arizona, we were raising money so they could buy their own bulletproof vests, because the PD there didn't even give them bulletproof vests. Imagine being a cop and having to buy your own vest. It's ridiculous. But this is true. So as a result of the cuts, as a result of the insanity, the cops are being downsized everywhere. And of course, the gangs are running completely out of control. Now, here's another great article that I saw over the weekend from WorldNet Daily by the managing editor of WorldNet Daily, David Kupelian. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Kupelian. This is a great story. The giant gaping hole in Sandy Hook reporting. And in the story that's up at worldnetdaily.com, WND, he covers the mainstream media, their refusal to cover the psychiatric drugs and their links to violent shooting and suicides. And he runs down what we've been reporting on for years at Natural News, which is the link between psych drugs and violent shootings. If you go back to Columbine, those kids that shot up their classmates and shot up their school, they were taking antidepressant drugs. If you run down the whole list, most school shootings and most violent outbursts, even in the military violence that's happened, what was the shooting at Fort Hood? That guy was under psychiatric care. All of these people are under psychiatric care. You look at Aurora, Colorado. You look at Sandy Hook in Connecticut, the recent situation. That guy was on psychiatric drugs. It is the link that the media refuses to report. They want to focus on, the guns are bad. They don't want to tell you that the guy left his AR-15 rifle in the car. He didn't even bring it into the school. They don't want to tell you that he was on psych drugs. They don't want to tell you that all these people are Satan worshipers, that they're all these goth-like characters who literally love the devil, love Satan, or think they do. They probably they don't even know what they're really dealing with, but they think they love Satan, and so they engage in this kind of behavior. In any case, check out that article at world.daily, WND.com. Good article. Next item, this is up at Infowars.com by Mark Slavo at SHTFplan.com. America's biggest killers, the chart anti-gunners don't want you to see. Alex covered this briefly in yesterday's article, but I want to make an addition to this chart. This chart shows the 10 biggest killers in the United States. And at the top of the chart is tobacco use at 529,000 deaths per annum. And underneath that is medical errors at 195,000 deaths. And it goes on down the chart. And guns or firearm homicides are at the very bottom of the chart. Underneath, falls, unintentional falls, people falling and dying. Motor vehicle accidents are 300% larger than firearm homicides. Alcohol abuse is almost 10 times higher in terms of deaths than firearm homicides. Unintentional injuries also 12 times higher, and so on. And if you look at the firearm homicides, most of those are gang-related crimes where gangbangers are shooting up each other. It's not like they're actually going after just random people on the street. They're going after each other. So that chart, it needs an update. I've got new information to add to it, and I'll bring that to you when we return here on The Alex Jones Show. This is Mike Adams sitting in for Alex today. Stay with us. We'll be right back. If you're just joining us, this is The Alex Jones Show. This is Mike Adams sitting in for Alex. He's on an airplane right this minute headed to New York. He's going to be on the Piers Morgan Show live tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, and you can do the math on when that is in your local area. So that might be interesting. Covering other news, you know, the Orlando gun show sales. This was in Orlando, clickorlando.com over the weekend. Orlando gun show sales reached record amidst the gun control debate. 8,000 people attended the first day of the gun show. Normally, they probably get 2,000 people. They had 8,000 people. They had to turn people away and give them a credit to come back the next day because they couldn't fit all the people in there. And of course, once they got there, all the guns were sold out. So it's like a gun show where you can't buy anything because it's all sold out. Actually, there were still some things for sale there, but gun dealers all across the country are completely wiped out of their supplies of firearms. This is continuing. The wait time is getting worse and worse. I've been talking to some of the gun distributors and dealers and manufacturers that I know personally, and they're telling me it's still on, man. It's still, people are buying like mad, and people are lining up, just handing them money, handing them like, here, $3,000. Just take this $3,000. Find me a 308 battle rifle the first chance you get, and you just hold on to my money until that happens. That's what we're seeing now. It's like, put your money down now and hope and pray. That should be Obama's new slogan. Hope and pray that you can never buy a rifle again, because they've talked it up so much now. They've created a 1-year wait period without even having a law for it. They've wiped out the gun supply nationwide. And the reason that I'm kind of happy today. You know why I'm happy? I'm happy because Feinstein and the liberals have finally shown their cards. And I actually welcome Dianne Feinstein to amend her bill. Let's just put everything in the bill that you really, really want, okay? Just put everything in there. Let's ban not just rifles, not just handguns and shotguns. Let's ban forks and spoons and knives, because, you could whack somebody in the temple with a spoon. That could hurt. We should just ban spoons and make people eat with sticks like they did in China. Just have all Americans, it's time for chopsticks. And you can't sharpen the chopsticks because those could be weapons of mass destruction. So everybody eat with chopsticks. And while we're at it, Senator Feinstein, why not just add into your bill that anyone who owns a gun can't have a website, can't have a First Amendment right, can't have a Second Amendment right, and that if you say anything against Obama, then let's say you shouldn't even have a Fifth Amendment right. In fact, all your Bill of Rights completely gone if you speak your mind. If you don't worship Feinstein and Obama, then you should be denied all of your rights. Let's just get it all out in there. And Feinstein's bill, by the way, banned grenade launchers on semi-auto rifles, as if you could just walk down to the gun store and buy a grenade launcher. Really? Is she so ignorant that she thinks that you can buy grenade launchers? In fact, the NRA even pointed out, why not just add to the bill banning particle beam weapons on your rifle? Yeah, particle beam weapons. And how about laser blasters? And why not handheld rifle-mounted tactical nukes out of Robert Heinlein's novel Starship Troopers? Let's just ban fully automated robotic body armor suits with self-seeking nuclear weapons and particle beams and laser blasters. Wonderful. We get sound effects today. Thank you, Feinstein, for painting such a wonderfully imaginative view of what America really needs today. I think we should get like Han Solo. Should get like the Han Solo character on the show to talk about his laser blasters, and then have Feinstein threaten to ban Han Solo. That's what we should do. No more Han Solo, no more laser blasters, and God forbid no lightsabers, because if you had a lightsaber, you could go into a school and just wreak havoc. So no more lightsabers, Dianne Feinstein. That's something we can support, banning lightsabers in the hands of the Jedi. All right, now getting back to reality here in the short time we have left. Sorry to get carried away, but it's so insane. All we can do is laugh at it at this point. It's so insane that you don't have a right to self-defense. You don't have a First Amendment. You don't even have the right to engage in commerce. Here's a story of a Bank of America freezing the deposits of a licensed gun manufacturer that was selling parts online. It's an economic embargo on top of the insanity. All right, stay with us. We've got guests and more news coming up. This is Mike Adams on The Alex Jones Show. We'll be right back after this break. Stay with us. That was Han Solo there. That little quote you might have heard. What did he say? Oh, your ancient arts and hocus pocus is no match for a good blaster or something? Anyway, that's one of my favorite lines from Star Wars. There are many. These are not the droids you're looking for. Being another. All right. I'm geeking out here on the Alex Jones Show by quoting Star Wars. If it gets any worse, I'll start quoting Star Trek lines too. Let's move on. We've got a guest coming up in just a couple of minutes. Mark Baker from Baker's Green Acres. He is the small farm owner who has been just endlessly harassed by the state of Michigan and its DNR, the Department of Natural Resources there. Going to go to him in a second. But first, let me cover this. This has been reported in a website called ironicsurrealism.com. I'm not familiar with that site, but the Bank of America freezes licensed gun manufacturers' deposits. And this is the company called American Spirit Arms at americanspiritarms.com. The owner's name is Joe Sirachman, and he posted on Facebook that the Bank of America seized his deposits, his online retailing deposits, and that the manager in Bank of America told him that the reason they seized his funds was, quote, "We believe you should not be selling guns and parts on the internet." Wow. First of all, you can't sell guns on the internet. Just for all the liberals that may be listening and don't know about FFL laws, you can't sell guns on the internet. You can accept a payment for a gun on the internet, but you can't deliver the gun to the person's house. You have to deliver it to a local dealer, obviously, where that person undergoes a background check and so on and so forth. FFL, Federal Firearms License. But the fact that this Bank of America representative reportedly said you shouldn't be selling gun parts on the internet either, well, there you go. It's all part of the economic embargo against actual Americans, against actual patriots. And another example of that economic embargo is happening right now against our friend Mark Baker from bakersgreenacres.com. And Mark joins us by phone to give us the latest breakdown of what's happening to him in Michigan. Mark, thank you for joining the show. How are you doing today, man?
Good, Mike. How are you doing?
Well, I'm flipping out. I'm just looking at all this news. It's so insane. Yeah. It's off the charts. And what you're experiencing is similar to it. Go ahead and give our audience, go back to the beginning, but keep it brief in case those people aren't familiar with your story. Take us back to what happened in the beginning and then bring us up to date.
Okay. 1 year ago, we were told that the pigs that we raise are going to be considered illegal in the state of Michigan because they have one of 9 characteristics that the Michigan Department of Natural Resources outlined in their declaratory ruling. The characteristics are as crazy as if a pig has a straight tail, it's illegal. If a pig has a curly tail, it's illegal. If a pig has a straight ear, it's illegal. Floppy ear, illegal. And then number 9 is other characteristics not currently known.
So anything they just want to invent, basically.
Right, anything they want. And so we were told that we had to depopulate our animals by April 1st of 2012.
And when you say depopulate, you mean kill them?
Kill them, push them in a hole. I'm former military, and I know that if I'm given an order that is illegal or unlawful, that is my duty to not carry that order out. So I chose to decline the order, and we leveled suit against the state for relief so we could go on and continue our business. The pigs that we raise are Mangalitsa and Mangalitsa hybrids, and we use a Russian boar cross. And they have some of the characteristics that the DNR's outlined. Anyway, we took them to court. It has dragged on. We still haven't argued the case in court, and it's on and on and on. Finally, the last shot across our bow was 2 weeks ago. We wanted to have some of our animals butchered through the USDA slaughter plant that we've used for 5 years. And the man that owns the plant says he wasn't able to because the USDA showed him pictures, and if our pigs had those characteristics, they couldn't go through his
Wait a minute.
shop.
So the order has come down from the USDA to all of the pig processing plants, pork processing plants there, to deny any farmer, to deny service to any farmer that comes in with a pig that matches those pictures? Is it like a wanted by the FBI picture where they have floppy ears on there and curly tails? Is that what it?
I wanted to get a copy of all of that stuff from the guy at the plant, but he's afraid of the USDA because they can shut him down. So I don't have any of that yet. Our lawyers are procuring that as we speak.
Wow. So I guess Porky the pig is the new Al Qaeda. It's kind of, but this sounds like an economic embargo against you, where they, like you said, you had used this plant before. They had processed some of your pigs before for years.
Yeah, 5 years we've used them.
And now they say, sorry.
Yeah.
So you couldn't get your pigs processed, which means you couldn't sell them.
Right. And if we can't sell the pigs, then we can't afford to feed the ones that are coming up, the younger ones. And so we were forced to make some decisions, and the decisions that we made was right before Christmas we would slaughter our mature sows, which are like 400-pound animals. And so we did that the weekend right after Christmas, and then last weekend we finished, got them all slaughtered.
So the government has forced you to kill your own animals, which will hurt your future business, and they're denying you a source of revenue because your pigs have a characteristic that they don't like.
That's it.
Like fur color, it's almost like skin color. It's like saying it's almost a kind of animal racism, you could say.
Well, it really is. They're saying that we have a problem with feral animals, and feralness is a behavior, right? And now they're saying that if my pigs are black, or they're black and white, or they're black and red, then they are more likely to be feral, so I have to get rid of them. And the only carve-out that they've given is to guys that raise pigs in confinement, and those are usually corporately held. Yeah,
like corporate feedlot operations.
Right. So they're not affected by this at all.
Got it.
It's the family farm that's affected. And, if your listeners were to call the Michigan DNR right now, they'd probably get a story like, oh, that doesn't apply to people that raise 4-H pigs. But then if you take the law that's sitting in front of me, it's the declaratory ruling that's available on our website if someone wants to download it, and you read it, and then you have some pigs in your backyard, and you look at them, you're going to say, well, by golly, my pigs do have floppy ears. That would make them illegal under this declaratory ruling.
It's the floppy ears law. But look, listeners, check out Mark Baker's website, bakersgreenacres.com. There are some great videos there that describe all of this in more detail. And if you're able, you may also wish to offer some small donations of support. Mark Baker and his attorneys are fighting against the highly oppressive Michigan government over this issue. What's the next step for your lawsuit, Mark? I know that the courts have been denying you an actual trial, but what's the next step? You mentioned something happening maybe in June of this year. I mean, what's going on?
Right. The last step that we had, I mean, that will help put it in perspective. We filed a motion with the court and said that we believed that the declaratory ruling is vague, and therefore it's unconstitutional if it's vague, because if they're going to charge me with a felony for these pigs that I have, and that is what harboring an invasive species is punishable with, if they're going to charge me with a felony, then it cannot be vague. It has to be very to the point, very clear, so a person knows that they're breaking the law. And we felt as though the ninth characteristic, where it says other characteristics not currently known to the DNR, as a characteristic that could make me a felon, we felt that was vague. And so we filed a motion with the court. The judge heard the motion. The judge said, I'll let you know in 30 days. 35 days come, and he says, no, I don't think it's vague. I think it's good. So now we have to go back to court. And trying to schedule court is tough, and they're telling us we're not going to be able to get in until June.
All right, so he doesn't think that whatever we want to make up, that's not vague, huh? That's wild. That's kind of like the United Nations treaty, human rights treaty, that says something like, oh yeah, you have all your rights, unless it opposes whatever we want the UN to do. Yeah. Is it just a very general, vague statement that is kind of a blanket statement that nullifies everything else they just said?
Right.
Well, let me ask you a bigger question here, Mark. Let's take your situation and expand it to the nation. So just as you have been denied your right to engage in farming, and your food freedoms have been taken away, and you used to be in the military, you served this country.
Right.
Now all Americans are being threatened with having their rights taken away by Dianne Feinstein, Obama, Biden, all the other gun grabbers who are suddenly saying, well, the Second Amendment doesn't apply, the Bill of Rights doesn't apply, we can just take these away from you because we want to.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on what's happening in America as a whole today?
Well, did you ever see the movie Ants?
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
I think that's my feeling. I was at an event yesterday, and I looked out over the crowd, and I saw probably 300 men, from ages, say, 20 to 60. And the nature of that event, I felt as though most of those men feel the same way that I do about our country and our freedoms. And we have a few people like Dianne Feinstein that are going to level some new law, because there's been some tragedies in the country. I think it's about time the men get together and start saying, we're going to come to the table and offer you our suggestion of the way things ought to go. And that wouldn't be the first time that's been done in this country.
Well, and when you say come to the table and offer you our suggestion, I mean, wouldn't that suggestion be to basically have all of you gun grabbers arrested as traitors? I mean, isn't that what the Constitution really says?
Yeah, if I was one of those gun grabbers, I think that I'd be barring the door.
Good point. Hey, in fact, I've got an article that I'm going to read here, not the whole thing, but I'm going to read this in the next segment. This is by Paul Howe from combatshootingandtactics.com. Paul Howe. He is an outstanding firearms instructor. You may know who he is, Mark.
I don't.
Well, he's an incredible tactical instructor. His article is entitled Second Amendment and the Kool-Aid Drinkers, and I'm going to go through some of the highlights of that. It's very powerful because he talks about, and he's not a radical guy or anything. He's a constitutional patriot, you know, very upstanding citizen. And he talks about like this, after the first few raids, he's talking about if gun confiscation is kicked off, the word would get out and Americans would start to fight back. It would only take one good ambush from a house or along a travel route to decimate a tactical force or make it combat ineffective. Right. That seems to be what I'm hearing from more and more people, in fact.
Well, they have to get young men to perform these gun confiscations. And those men have lives. They only have one. They have families. They have, you know, things that they like to do on weekends. And you know, they would be going into a very precarious situation. These are American citizens we're talking about here.
Yeah.
These are not Canadians, you know. This isn't Australia. This is the United States of America. I think they better rethink what they're talking about.
Well, I think we need more Americans to stand up like you have done. You refuse to lay down to the Michigan DNR, and you're fighting it. And that is the path to victory. The victory is within our reach. All we have to do is call their bluff and stand up to them. All these people that are calling for gun grabbing, they don't have experience in the field with firearms. They're hoping someone else will do it for them.
Oh, right.
You know, Senator Feinstein, she's not going to grab a gun and kick in your front door and throw a flashbang in there and say, "I'm Feinstein, here to get your guns." Yeah. No, she's going to try to recruit somebody else to do that. Although it would be an interesting video if she actually tried to do that, but she's probably not.
No. She'll get some other American to do it, some 23-year-old kid that wants to be law enforcement. And, yeah, they don't do their own dirty work, that's for sure.
No, never. Even in war, they send somebody else's kids off to fight their wars. That's right. To fight and die in too many cases, sadly.
Yeah.
Well, where do you think this is all going? Not just in Michigan, but where do you think it's all headed? Because, look, I think your issue that you're facing there, Mark, is just a symptom of America, the erosion of freedoms and liberties. It's all the same issue.
I agree, Mike. Like with the gun issue, they want to take everybody's gun because one nut did something crazy, right? It's the same thing with the pigs. They want to take the farmers' pigs because there are supposedly some feral pigs that are doing damage to golf courses. It's kind of the same thing.
Well, that's like saying that if somebody's bull gets loose and their bull runs around the golf course, tearing up the golf course, which I'm sure a bull would have a wonderful time doing that, to say, well, now all bulls are going to be illegal or cows are going to be banned in Michigan. It's the same thing.
Sure, it's the same thing. Or if a dog bit somebody, let's do away with all dogs.
Right. Yeah, it's a felony to have a dog.
Yeah. So this thing with Americans picking up guns, that's a really hot topic. And I know I come in contact with a lot of people that talk about this, and I think that is the one issue that is really going to kick the can over. And we're coming to a showdown. There's no doubt about it. And it's going to go one way or the other. And it's the same thing with the pigs. We're coming to a showdown. Either we have the right to farm or we don't. But if they want to take that right away from us, somebody's got to come take it.
Well, Mark, I am confident. I'm absolutely confident. In fact, I have a great sense of optimism about all this over the last few days after really digging into this. The gun owners are going to win big time, because the insanity has gotten so bad that it can't continue. I don't know if you heard the first part of the show, but did you hear this story out of the New York Post that welfare recipients now are using their EBT cards, that's their government handout cards, at strip clubs, liquor stores, and X-rated shops? That's where they're using your tax money, Mark.
Well, yeah, I don't like that too good.
Yeah, that's how insane it has become. But anyway, stay with us, Mark. We'll be right back.
All right.
After this break, more from Mark Baker here on the Alex Jones Show. This is Mike Adams sitting in. Stay with us, a lot straight ahead. All right. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, filling in for Alex. I'm the editor of naturalnews.com. and a frequent contributor to Infowars.com. Go to Infowars.com right now, by the way. A lot of news stories being posted there every morning. Excuse me. Every morning, Kurt Nimmo and Don are cranking away, and Paul Joseph Watson, of course, also working at the early hours of our morning in the U.S. He's based, obviously, in the U.K. A lot of great information there. I was just thinking, we need a new B movie called Invasion of the Zombie Redcoats. Like, you know how they have all that zombie ammo out there now? Like Hornady and all these companies have zombie ammo, Zombie Max. And there's even a company that has a varmint round called like Zombageddon or something. It's really great. We should have a new B movie. The Zombie Redcoats try to take over Washington. And I'm not going to go into that too much more. Sorry, I get carried away. But let's go into this article before and ask for Mark Baker's feedback on it again. Mark Baker joins us with bakersgreenacres.com, and he, of course, has been threatened with felony crimes by the state of Michigan for raising pigs that he's been raising for many, many years. In fact, his family has been in the farming business for, I think, generations. Mark, we talked about what the reaction might be from Americans if there were a gun confiscation order. But I think people don't realize that if they turn in their guns, then they're going to lose all their other freedoms, such as farming freedom, as you're also experiencing now, but food freedom, medical freedom, freedom to say no to vaccines, all these other issues that people want to have a choice on.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Mark?
Oh, that's the easy one for me. I'm a student of history, and I know that gun registration is always followed by gun confiscation. And when the people don't have guns, the people who do have guns can tell them to do whatever they want. So if your guns are being confiscated from you, you might as well get ready to get herded onto cattle cars next, because they'll be able to do it to you.
Sure.
And you won't have any choice. You know, everybody knows that the right to own and bear arms is not about hunting or keeping the Indians out of the camp. It's really about the balance of powers. We're supposed to have federal troops, state troops, and then citizens militia. That's how it's supposed to be set up, so that the citizens can come to the table and have some say in what's going to happen, you know, across the country. Right now, we've got the federal government, the state government telling us, the citizenry, this is how it's going to be.
Well, that's what's fascinating. You see, the gun-grabbing liberals, and I don't want to always use the term liberal in a negative connotation, but in this context, it is, in the sense that they're so naive. They've never studied history. They don't know that they, too, will be rounded up eventually or oppressed eventually. You see, they want to have the federal government take away the guns, but then they don't think about, well, what about the next election? What if there's another tyrant that gets the White House, even a Republican tyrant, let's say, who's worse than Obama, worse than Clinton, worse than Bush, or whatever, and that person uses the power that Obama took from the people to then commit genocide. See, the liberals don't think ahead. I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of short-sightedness, but that's typical of what they do.
Yeah. Well, I guess foresight requires intelligence, and that's just asking too much. But Mark Baker, thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Thanks for having me on, Mike.
Thank you. And go to bakersgreenacres.com to learn more about the fight that Mark Baker is having with the state of Michigan and their attempts to oppress farm freedom and food freedom right under our noses. We'll be right back. Welcome to the second hour of the Alex Jones Show. This is Mike Adams, the health ranger, filling in for Alex today, who is on an airplane to New York right now to appear on CNN later tonight talking with Piers Morgan. And so I'm filling in for Alex today and having a good time doing it, too, because there's just, you can't help but make comedy about all the insanity that's going on out there. It's so insane that you got to laugh at it. And but we also have some solutions that we're talking about today. I've got a good solution, in fact, coming up here. But first, let me give you a preview of what's happening this hour. At the bottom of this hour, we're going to be joined by Jon Rappoport from nomorefakenews.com to discuss psychiatric drugs and how the government's surveillance of your prescription drugs could be turned against you to deny you your constitutional rights. I also hope to take some calls when Jon is on the air with us, so I'll announce the phone number in the next segment. We'll get some calls queued up for Jon. And then in the third hour, Aaron Dykes is going to be taking command of the chair here and possibly reading from a Paul Revere book, I heard. I don't know if that's true or if that was just some banter around the office here, but maybe something to do with Paul Revere. We'll find out, and I'll let you know as soon as I know. Now, in the meantime, I've got a solution for all the gun grabbers. This is the perfect solution for liberals. You can opt out of the Bill of Rights. If you hate the Second Amendment, give it up. If you hate the Bill of Rights, give it up. All you have to do, folks, here's all you have to do. Take your passport down to the U.S. Passport Office. Denounce your citizenship. Book a flight to a nation called North Korea. Once there, they will give you a new passport and you can enjoy utopia under the new regime of freedom of what's the guy's name there? Not Kim Jong-il, it's Kim Jong-un. Yes, because every generation they change one syllable. Next time is going to be Kim Jong-un. But all the liberals could go there. And there you have no Second Amendment. Therefore, everything must be A-OK. Never mind the barbed wire facing inward at the border checkpoints to prevent North Koreans from escaping their own country. Never mind that. Never mind the fact that the guards face inward with their assault rifles. Oh, yes, they have guns in North Korea, but only in the hands of the government guards. But I think the liberals would love that. So you see, the Bill of Rights is optional. You can simply give it up for yourself, but you can't take it from me. You got that? You can't take it from me. And you can't take it from the other patriots and the other veterans and the other lawful and legal gun owners and the other peace officers who are actually trying to restore peace and liberty and freedom in this country. You can't take it from us. You can only denounce your own. In fact, why not we should just have a website for liberals called, opt out of the Bill of Rights. And then, put, the leaders of that movement up there. Put Michael Moore up there, put Feinstein up there. The leaders of the opt out of the Bill of Rights effort. That would be very popular in certain circles in Hollywood, I imagine. Now, there's another thing that we have to remember here, that this very idea that because one person in Sandy Hook committed a terrible crime of violence, that everybody else in the country is supposed to give up all their rights? Wait a minute. One citizen does something bad, every citizen gets punished for it? Well, by the same logic, if one government bureaucrat ever abuses the freedom of an American citizen, and oh my gosh, they never do that, then we should ban all government. We should eliminate all government. I mean, using their logic, one person does something wrong, ban everybody. We should say one government official does something wrong, defund the entire government. That's their logic. But of course, they want it selectively applied, not rationally applied across the board. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Alex Jones.
Yeah, we're back on the Alex Jones Show. This is Monday. It's another Monday for just joining us, January 7th, 2013. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, filling in for Alex today. Some pretty energetic music. Thanks, guys. I always appreciate the extra boost. Not that we need it around here. Powered by freedom and superfoods. That's our slogan. That's our motto. And speaking of freedom, we've got joining us today the executive director of the Illinois State Rifle Association, ISRA, is just going to be joining us for about 5 minutes or so to give us an update on this sneak attack that happened last night in Illinois, in Springfield, to try to destroy the Second Amendment rights of all citizens of the state of Illinois. So, Mr. Pearson, Richard Pearson is his name, and guys, if you'll bring up the website, I'll mention the URL during the interview. Mr. Pearson, thank you for joining us today on the Alex Jones Show.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. Give us an update, breakdown. What happened yesterday in the state Congress there?
Well, what happened was we had been working all weekend, with phone calls, and I got lots of complaints in that the phone lines were jammed up, melted down, plugged up, and they decided to withdraw all the bills yesterday at 4 o'clock.
So they were trying to sneak it through on a Sunday.
Right. But on Sunday we were there, and they decided to hoist the white flag, at least temporarily.
So if this bill had passed, tell us exactly what it would have done in terms of criminalizing firearms in the state.
Well, you wouldn't have been able to own any semi-automatic anything, including 22 rifles with magazines.
Wow. Do these people not realize how many farmers and ranchers are in Illinois and they need these as tools of the farm?
They don't care. They don't like anybody that owns guns. They don't like you because you like guns. They don't like me because I like guns.
So surely they must realize that Chicago is already the murder capital of the world, even though it's a, quote, gun-free zone.
Well, that's right, but it's because of those guns it's the murder capital of the world. Although the second largest city, which is not a gun-free zone, had no murders last year.
And which city would that be?
That would be Aurora, Illinois. And so I don't know how they reconcile this, but they can do it in their own mind because they have magnificent mental powers.
How angry are the legal firearms owners in the state of Illinois right now? Because I'm sure you've heard from a lot of them. What's the word on the street there?
They are angry, but that doesn't mean this is piloted by the city of Chicago and Rahm Emanuel, and so they're going to bring this back again. It doesn't matter to them how angry they are, but so we'll see this again, and we will resist with every effort.
But, sir, do they think that they can just make a law on a piece of paper and that nothing's going to happen in response? Do they think that all the people of the state of Illinois are just going to turn in their guns and become slaves to Rahm? Do they really believe that's going to happen?
Well, I actually think that they do actually believe that's going to happen, but I think the last few days have shown that might be outside of what's going to happen here.
Yeah. What is your website, Mr. Pearson, so that people can visit?
It is www.isra.org.
isra.org. Okay, and I see you have an urgent alert posted there. That's from yesterday.
Yes.
Are you getting a lot of additional press right now across the country or across the state? What's happening with the media angle on this?
We are getting lots of interviews, lots of phone calls, lots of emails. We have people joining. We have members from Texas, by the way. And so we appreciate everyone going to the website and joining. And we thank you for that.
Excellent. All right. Well, I appreciate the update, Richard. Thank you for joining us here on the Alex Jones Show today, and keep up the fight, because we the gun owners of America, will win this. We just have to continue the fight. That's all.
Oh, yeah, we do, and we have to stick together too.
Absolutely. Well, good job defeating that bill, and keep up the effort to fight for liberty and freedom in America.
I will. Thank you, and thank everyone out there.
All right. Thank you. Take care then. All right. That was Richard Pearson from the Illinois State Rifle Association. And I'm sure similar events are happening elsewhere across the country. There are probably various nefarious plans by the state representatives of certain cities, let's say, to try to take away the Second Amendment rights of lawful and legal gun owners, which, by the way, include many peace officers, many returning veterans, many active duty military and active duty cops as well. And, I did a story the other day, too, about airline pilots. Most people who fly airplanes don't realize that about 17% of the time you're flying in a plane with an armed pilot. That's a good thing. It's a good thing because we don't want pilots to be overpowered by terrorists, right? Or hijackers or anything else. So we arm the pilots, and they carry concealed weapons in the flight deck, and they are prepared to use them. And I tell you what, the pilots that I know, one pilot in particular, he's a very good shot with a Colt 1911 and 45 caliber. He'll put two right in the forehead of any terrorist that tries to break into the flight deck, no questions asked. So there you go. Pilots. Yep, good guys and gals, a few gals, but mostly good guys. All right, let's go on to this story here. Second Amendment and the Kool-Aid drinkers. This was posted by Paul Howe. I mentioned it earlier. This is ahead of us being joined by Jon Rappoport at the bottom of this hour. This is a very important story. And this is the most important story of the day, in my opinion. Paul Howe is the creator of combatshootingandtactics.com. Combatshootingandtactics.com. Paul Howe is a very intelligent firearms instructor. I've learned a tremendous amount of information from his videos posted over at makeready.tv. That's the website, makeready.tv. I normally don't endorse just third-party, video companies, but in this case, I've seen so many millions of Americans purchasing firearms, but not necessarily getting good training on how to use them. And makeready.tv is a great place. You can get online training, tons of videos. I use it. It is top-notch, top-quality production. Panteo Productions is the company. And no, they didn't pay me to say that. I'm just a customer and a patriot. So go to makeready.tv. You can see Paul Howe in action. Now, getting to his article, though, this is brilliant. Second Amendment and the Kool-Aid drinkers. Paul Howe discusses what would actually happen if gun confiscation were attempted in the United States. He asks the question, who's coming to get them, meaning the guns? Who's coming to get the guns? And he breaks it down because, look, he trains with military, he trains with law enforcement, and he has for decades. He knows all the tactics, he knows all the people, he knows their attitudes, their belief systems, their loyalties. This guy knows what he is talking about. The most qualified person to talk about this issue of gun confiscation, in my opinion. And he says that, first of all, if the military were tasked with gun confiscation, here's what would happen. He says, quote, remember, these forces, the military forces, would have to come from a military base that is surrounded and supported by American communities. If the military began gun confiscation, the civilians would simply stop supporting the base, cut off the fuel, food, electricity on the bases, and it would stop the silliness, Paul Howe says in his article. And he says also many service members that live in those local communities would have to travel from their houses to their base unless they were locked down. And the families in the community would not be too friendly to those engaged in gun confiscation. That's another way of saying, you're not going to make it to the base, buddy. You may not even make it out of your house if you're one of these gun grabbers. Now, another quote, if the federal government tries to engage in gun confiscation, DHS or TSA, can you imagine the TSA trying to engage in gun confiscation? These pathetic people wouldn't last a day. They'd be outgunned by all the patriots and all the police officers and all the preppers in no time. TSA, give me a break. What are they going to do, raid our house with a latex glove? Really? Paul Howe writes, after the first few raids, the word would get out and Americans would start to fight back. Yeah, no kidding. It would take one good ambush from a house or along a travel route to decimate a tactical force or make it combat ineffective. Yep, that's all it takes. If you're going to try to declare war on the American people by taking away their guns, you're going to have a guerrilla war on your hands and you're going to lose, you gun grabbers. You're going to lose big time. Paul Howe continues in his article. He says, quote, most federal agencies work out of a fixed location centrally located in a community. Ah, yes, we know where you are. We know where you're based. And he goes on, those were my words, we know where you are, not Paul's words. But Paul goes on, also, their personnel live in those communities along with their families. Once the word got out that they were doing raids in violation to the Constitution, they and their families would be at risk. Yeah, they and their families would be more than at risk. They would probably have their homes burned out because think about it. If you're on a tactical police team and you're conducting armed raids on houses around your community, they know where you live. They know, it's not a secret, your names. If you're on a force that's doing that, they know where your homes are. You can expect your home to be burned out probably if this kind of thing gets going. You're putting yourself in danger is what's going to happen. And most sheriffs and deputies and police officers are going to say, no way, I'm not doing that. Besides, I believe in the Constitution. I support the Second Amendment. That's what they're going to say. I'm not going to go run around and kick in people's doors. Paul Howe continues, tactical teams could probably do only 8 to 10 hits in a day, and then they would need a break. That's a lot of hits. So they hit 10 houses and seize their guns. The word gets out. It would not go well. And if 1 or 2 determined Americans or combat vets fought back, the team would lose many. The TAC team would lose members to death or injury, and they would admit it, and, well, they have to stop doing their raids because they're losing guys. That's the way it would really work. So there you go. That's the truth on the situation of gun confiscation from Paul Howe. We'll be right back on the Alex Jones Show. Stay with us. You are listening to the Alex Jones Show. Alex is on an airplane headed to New York to be on a show tonight. This is Mike Adams, the health ranger, filling in for Alex today. Sort of a last-minute deal. He called me over the weekend and was like, hey, Mike, can you fill in? And okay, you got it, man. Anything for the cause of liberty. So I am here. And by the way, a friend texted me over the break that we just had, and because earlier in the show, I sort of joked about Senator Feinstein kicking in doors and throwing flashbangs and engaging in her own gun confiscation. And my friend texted me and said, I'd pay good money to see that. I would pay money to see Senator Feinstein throwing a flashbang and kicking in doors and seizing guns. Yeah, we all would. I should. Hey, Joe Rogan out there, you should get like a pay-per-view thing set up with the UFC called like the Ultimate Confiscation Championship, and have Senator Feinstein and Schumer and Michael Moore and dress them up in like body armor and put guns in their hands and have them try to kick it. They probably couldn't even kick in the door. They just couldn't even get that far. They'd kick the door and break an ankle. You know what I mean? It would be that pathetic. But I think all these people talk about gun confiscation. Do it yourself, man. Don't hide behind a bunch of laws. You want to take our guns? Do it personally, face to face. You know, bring it on. All right. Oh, man. Okay, drudgereport.com right now, top link. Showdown, talk host Alex Jones detained by the TSA. This is true. This is top link on Drudge. And there's a picture of it. Go to drudgereport.com right now. There's a picture of it. I guess looks like another passenger, traveler, grabbed this photo and sent it to Drudge. And Alex called me from the airplane right before I went on the air here, about 20 minutes before I went on the air today. He was very angry, and he said that the TSA had detained him and threatened him with arrest. And really? Officer's name? Okay, John Bowen here just said that that's the same officer in the photo that detained or that threatened them when they were filming at the Austin airport. So that officer, whoever did, I don't know his name, apparently does not understand the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. And I guess we should thank that officer, because what he did is he just sent Alex Jones to New York with extra steam. That's what he really did. But there's going to be a video on this later today. Alex filmed some of this on his iPhone, I've been told. And that video is going to be edited shortly. There has to be some other travelers taken out of the video who don't have anything to do with it. So they're going to be edited out to focus on the actual conflict. Alex Jones detained, threatened with arrest at the Austin airport today, this morning, just hours ago. So that's the new America. You can't even get on the plane and fly to a media interview without being threatened with unlawful arrest by a bunch of goons who think that the Constitution doesn't apply in an airport. People are fed up. I'm fed up. You're fed up. Patriots are fed up. Gun owners are fed up with the insanity. And this is not going to last, folks. This is not going to last. Believe me. And in just a couple of minutes, we've got Jon Rappoport joining us by Skype to give us some additional thoughts on where this is all headed. But first, let me finish up this article about the Kool-Aid drinkers from Paul Howe, because he has a couple more quotes in here that are very powerful. I just want to get these in. Paul mentions, and Paul's a firearms instructor, one of the best, most widely recognized in the country. I believe he trains people at a facility here in Texas, in fact. He says that America is a nation of combat veterans and patriots. We have the guns and ammunitions out there and the talent to use them, because thanks to the fact that we've been at war since about the early 1990s, our nation has effectively trained hundreds of thousands of soldiers how to use firearms. And those soldiers, their constitution, their loyalty is to the Constitution to which they took an oath. So that's a very positive outcome of the fact that we've been at war, even though I don't support all the wars, but I am happy that our soldiers have gained the skills that come from conflict so that we can protect our liberties here at home. Paul Howe again, in every law enforcement, government, and military agency or branch, he says there are a small number of Kool-Aid drinkers who would blindly follow orders. They would either be purged internally by their coworkers, he says, or the people they attacked would, quote, stop their gene pool. That's a euphemism for being terminated as a traitor to America. Those are the words of Paul Howe. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Jon Rappoport coming up after this break. This is the Alex Jones Show. Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, filling in, fighting for liberty.
We're on.
All right, we've got details on the breaking news that's up at drudgereport.com right now, also posted at Infowars.com. The article by Paul Joseph Watson just posted minutes ago. Alex Jones detained by the TSA. On his way to New York, Alex was approached by a TSA screener, one who knows the entire Infowars crew very well, who said, "Hello, Mr. Jones," indicating that he knew who he was, and demanded that Alex Jones take off his shoes. Alex refused, saying that he was being discriminated against because he was a known critic of the TSA. The officer growled, and also Alex pointed out that the last time he had removed his shoes, he had athlete's foot as a result, because these places are filthy. Hey, they don't even change their latex gloves, okay? These tyrants, they don't mind just infecting you with everything imaginable. It's kind of like a biological warfare little scheme there they have going. Jones said, "I'm not taking my shoes off." The officer growled, "Take your damn shoes off or I'm going to arrest you." And they continued to threaten to arrest Jones and prevent him from flying. They talked to other cops. Despite the officer seemingly wanting to take further action, TSA management said they eventually were happy to let Jones go on his way. Yeah, they know that it's all a bluff. It's all a bluff. They know they have no right to force you to take off your shoes or pull down your pants or take off your colostomy bag or any of these other just humiliations that they push onto the American people. It's absolutely insane. So Alex Jones very nearly arrested today in Austin by a total TSA goon, well, and a police officer, apparently. No, wait a minute. Was that an officer? No, that was a TSA screener. Sorry. I think the police officers have more sense, frankly. And we've seen that even in the Austin airport. The officers, they know more about constitutional rights, but the TSA people, they are completely out of control. They are absolute traitors to America. And this is the reason I don't fly. Because I know that if I try to fly, they're going to put a little bag of cocaine in my carry-on. And they're going to arrest me for having a bag of cocaine or whatever they want to throw in there. Or they'll just make something up. You know, this is why I don't fly. And Alex Jones was able to, I mean, it's hard. You can't intimidate Alex Jones. So I'm sure he screamed back at them in their face, and that's the photo that is on this report by Paul Joseph Watson. So Alex is on the plane. He made it through security. I mean, this is becoming Nazi America, people. You know, these security checkpoints, Texas state troopers reaching down the pants of those women in that video that went public last week. You know, not even changing their gloves and going inside the bodies of women, two different women. It's insane. This is total tyranny. This is the definition of tyranny. Not even in North Korea do they go inside your body with latex gloves. It's unbelievable. All right, we're joined by Jon Rappoport, and Jon is joining us by Skype video. Oh man, we're showing. I can't watch that state trooper video again. But Jon, Welcome to the show today. And first, let me ask you for your comments on that story that's just breaking right now on the Drudge Report and here at Infowars.com. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I would just about, echo what you said, Mike, because, it's completely insane. It's criminal all the way down the line. They've got a program, and the program is to put people into fear and to say, we're in charge. What better place to do this than an airport? Anytime you pass through here, any of our, quote, checkpoints, you're going to be grilled and drilled and whatever else we want to do to you. Or if it's a good day and we feel like just saying, hey, everything's fine, that's up to us. You have no power. We have all the power.
Well, that's exactly it. John, the thing is, they knew Alex Jones. They called him by name. They approached him and said, hello, Alex, remove your shoes because we are the powerful minions of the New World Order. They just want to exercise power. Yeah,
and we know who know who you are. We know you're a critic, and just so you understand, Alex, we're in charge, not you. So that's the point that we're trying to make. But of course, they didn't make it because you got on the plane.
It's the raw exercise of juvenile tyranny. It's these people. They must have such small little souls. They must be such children inside, these TSA officers. I can't even call them officers. TSA goons, thugs, absolute thugs. They must be little emotionally immature children inside to get off on making people take their shoes off when they know that person's not a threat. They know the person.
Of course. They absolutely know that. And then you've got other people because, I fly. I've seen TSA people who themselves are trapped in the system because, they're broke, they're out of work, they can find a job, so they take the job and they're standing around. I've watched them, and they look at the whole charade and they're thinking to themselves, you can see it written on their face, this is complete insanity, but I have to pick up a paycheck.
Yeah.
And so they do this, right? And when I've talked to them, I can see that they know I know, and I know they know I know. This is all insane, right? And yeah, that's what's going on. It's the police state in action.
Yeah, well, and they're standing around irradiating themselves, giving themselves cancer, which I guess in a funny kind of Darwinist kind of way, they are actually eliminating themselves from the future human gene pool through infertility, and they don't even know it. They're so uninformed. What was it? Melissa Melton was telling me this morning when I walked through here. She said that there was a TSA agent who told her that the machines, they don't emit radiation. They only emit X-rays.
Oh, great.
Yeah, really.
Well, got that now from the top of the food chain. No X-rays. No radiation, just X-rays.
Only X-rays, yeah, because in their minds, X-rays are not radiation. And,
of course, because
where do you find these people? How do you put out ads to say, maximum IQ allowed 72?
Or answer this question: are X-rays and radiation the same thing? And it says no. You got a job, baby. Right?
Oh man, you ask them what is the table of elements, and they think that's the place where they eat in the break room.
Right?
It's like, okay, oh my God, we're being ruled by morons.
The Twinkie element, on the chart. Yeah, it's completely insane.
Oh, and it's like, Alex Jones, take off your shoes. We know who you are. We know you're a national radio host. We know you're no threat to anybody. We know you've never been arrested. You have no criminal record. We know you, but take off your damn shoes or I'm going to arrest you. That's a quote. It's incredible.
Man.
Oh, okay.
Do we have any, I'm sure there's nobody was there taking video of this, were they?
Alex was taking video, and he said he's going to upload it. So we're going to get to see some video tonight. It's not during this broadcast because Alex is on the plane. And it's not landing for another, hour or whatever. So tonight there will be video, and I can't wait to see it personally. I'm just,
I think it'll be a great lesson.
But the other point is, if it was someone other than Alex Jones, they would have been arrested. You see, they let Alex go because they knew what would happen if they arrested Alex Jones.
Exactly. So if it was just somebody who said, no, you can't. You can't make me take off my shoes. That guy's in jail.
Right, exactly. So even Alex only got through there by his wits and his notoriety. If it had been someone who wasn't well known, they would have been in jail and probably, punched in the face, beat up, and whatever, tortured, who knows, or even sometimes killed. They've been killed after being detained at the airport.
Or somebody would say, well, this is prima facie evidence that you're a terrorist because you wouldn't take off your shoes, right?
Right, yeah, you have Al-Qaeda shoes on. I see your Al-Qaeda hush puppies.
Right. Exactly.
All right, let's go on to the other issues today, but it's infuriating how much tyranny we are suffering under in America today, and that all these liberals, I got to say, they think the answer is more tyranny. The answer is more government. The answer is to take away more rights from the people. Put all the guns in the hands of the worst goons imaginable. People like the TSA. Can you imagine if the TSA were armed?
Oh yeah. I mean, well, let's another incident, and they will be armed.
I'm sure that's the plan. I'm sure that's what some of the 1.6 billion bullets are for. The 40 caliber hollow points. They're going to arm the TSA, which, that's going to be interesting because I bet these people can't hit the side of a barn with a firearm.
Guns fired in airport, 5 innocent spectators killed,
Right. All right, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to get off topic, but let's get back on.
Listen, I mean, this is completely on topic because it's happening right now.
Well, yeah, it is happening right now. You know what? Let's open up the call queue, guys, at GCN there. Let's open it up. Let me give out the number, 1-800-259-9231. 800-259-9231. If you've got a question or comment for Jon Rappoport or myself, a comment about Alex Jones being detained and threatened with arrest this morning at the Austin airport, or comments about gun rights, you name it. Call in. We'll take some calls. Now, let's get to the article. I got to give you credit for this, John. You called me yesterday. We had a short conversation on the phone. You brought up this idea that the prescription drug records of patients all across America could be used to label everyone that's on antidepressants, for example, as being mentally unfit to own firearms, and then deny them the right to own or possess firearms.
Absolutely.
You wrote
then you took off from that. I mean,
yes,
this just knocked me over. That you've discovered that there is indeed one giant database of Americans who are on medical drugs.
Yes. I took your idea and I did some additional research on it last night, and I found this National All Schedules Prescription Electronic Reporting Act, NASPR, signed into law by George Bush in 2005. And then a multi-state data sharing prescription drug surveillance program now run by 48 states that goes by a different name, which is funded by the U.S. Department of Justice. And the website is pmpalliance.org, pmpalliance.org. So I got to give you credit, John, for bringing this up. And I think it's a huge story. Your thoughts?
Gigantic. I mean, I have to assume, Mike, without having actually looked at this database, because I'm sure I can't get into it, but whoever can get into it is going to be able to find out the names of people, right?
Yes.
Who take the drugs. Otherwise, what good is the database, right? I mean,
no, it's got to have your name and the drugs that you're taking. That's in the database. Right. That's the whole point of the database.
So therefore, inferring from that, somebody knows right away, right now, what psychiatric medications Adam Lanza was on, James Holmes was on, any one of these people that, I've been knocking on this door and you have and other people. Who's the guy's doctor? What psychiatric meds was he on? Let's find out, because we know these medications induce violence. Well, now you've proved people already know, people who have access to the database. They could tell us. Excuse me.
And there's this article this morning in WorldNet Daily by David Kupelian that he calls it the giant gaping hole in Sandy Hook reporting, where they're not talking about the prescription drugs. They don't want us to know what drugs they were on, because if we knew, then they couldn't blame the guns, John.
Exactly.
They have to blame the guns.
Exactly. So they don't want to say, they won't say. The drug companies are in on this because the drug companies want to blame guns too. I mean, the drug companies are behind gun control because that deflects all responsibility away from the psychiatric drugs.
Well, right.
So you've got this giant, juggernaut monopoly, corporate, government, etc., all against the guns. Let's take away the guns. We know it's the guns. Of course, the guns jump off the shelves and kill people themselves. It's not the drugs.
No, it's not the drugs that alter the mind, that controls the muscles, that move the finger, that touches the trigger, that actuates the firing pin, that strikes the primer. No, it's not any of that. The gun is a magic device, a magical device that leaps out of the holster and starts shooting children all by itself at like some kind of anime horror film or something. I don't know. It's bizarre. Let's go to calls, John, if you're up for it.
Sure, let's go.
All right, let's Mark from Oregon. You're on the line. Welcome to the show, Mark. What's on your mind?
Welcome to my home, gentlemen. I really appreciate all your great work. You're wonderful.
Well, thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much. Couldn't do any more than you've done.
Hey, we're just like you. We're just fighting for liberty here. That's it.
Yeah, but you do it with such gusto, Mike.
Well, that's because we are real Americans. We are the real America, you know? We are the ones who broke off from tyranny, and we're going to defend the Constitution that we were built on. That's it. Bottom line. End of story.
We have to move into the spirit of 1776.
Absolutely.
Mike and John, I called in today about it's based around the Sandy Hook shooting, and there are two areas I'd like to cover very quickly if I could. And one is the situational basis and the legal basis of what everything is being revolved on against us, okay, as the American people, being prepared to go into physical slavery relative to this last step, which occurs historically before the actual physical enslavement of the people of a nation.
Right. We're going through the cycle of civilizations right now, and you're right. We're at that point of enslavement, which is usually followed by revolution, by the way, historically.
So realizing how important this is, if I have the time to cover these two, I think it would enlighten you and the audience, because it's just the conglomeration and the result of all the information I've taken in, which is substantial from good men such as yourself.
Well, hit them as fast as you can. Go ahead. Get right into it.
Quickly here.
In the situational basis, you have the glaring inconsistencies all around the Aurora shooting in Aurora, Colorado, the movie theater, as well as Sandy Hook. Moving back into 9/11, coming forward a ways to the underwear bomber. We have glaring inconsistencies which are, in a court of law, would eventually prove that U.S. government black operations were involved in all of these different false flag terror attacks. So that you have this existing in the Aurora, Colorado shooting in various places, as well as up on the screen, the Joker points on a map to Sandy Hook.
Let me ask John to comment on that, Mark. That's a really great point, because John has done more research on this than most others.
You know, this business with the Sandy Hook map in The Dark Knight Rises, and Gary Oldman, the police commissioner Gordon, pointing to it in the movie.
Hey, we got to go out to break, John. Sorry to interrupt you, but continue to answer that on the other side of this break. And thank you for your call, Mark. We will be right back with John's answer to the inconsistencies in the shootings that continue to happen as a pretext for gun control in America. Stay with us here on The Alex Jones Show. We'll be right back.
Looking back on 2020.
All right, in the next hour, by the way, Aaron Dykes is going to be taking over the broadcast at the bottom of the hour and covering some historical quotes on the Second Amendment and really breaking down where the Second Amendment comes from and why it is merely a confirmation of a sacred right that we're born with, a birthright, in other words. And he's going to have a very interesting collection of quotes of both patriots as well as historical gun grabbers such as Stalin. Well, they love guns too. They just love them in their own hands, not in the hands of the actual people. In any case, we are taking calls right now with Jon Rappoport, the author of a wonderful new article that's posted up on Infowars.com right now that talks about psychiatry becoming the new police, where this national prescription drug database that we've now confirmed exists could be used to deny you the right to own a firearm, or even other rights, perhaps the right to free speech, perhaps the right to have a website, if you're on antidepressants or other drugs. So this could be used against you in the days and months ahead. John, Welcome back to the show. Do you want to continue with that question that was posed right before the break?
Yeah, this has to do with this boggling coincidence, in heavy quotes, in the movie The Dark Knight Rises, where Commissioner Gordon, the character, is pointing to a map that says Sandy Hook in big letters on it. You can't see anything else on the map. You can't read anything else. And he's pointing to that, talking about an attack. So, this is just one of a list of boggling, quote, coincidences tied to the Sandy Hook murders that I wrote about. Well, this morning, I come across a piece, and it looks solid to me so far, that the property master on the film, The Dark Knight Rises, the guy responsible for all the props, like maps and so forth, and bringing them in, a guy named Scott Getzinger, died in an auto accident in April of 2012, several months before, Sandy Hook and so forth. And he died in a mysterious auto accident in Newtown, Connecticut.
No way.
Right?
All right, so I understand that's still preliminary. You're going to check it out some more.
Yeah, but I saw the article in a Connecticut paper that said he died in April of 2012 in the accident, gave his name, said he was the property master on The Dark Knight Rises. This wasn't, it was just a regular local newspaper. Yeah, here's the story. It's up on screen here that Scott Getzinger was killed Friday night in a head-on collision in Stamford, Connecticut, when his truck was struck by a car. His credits include The Dark Knight Rises. Property master, yeah. And Men in Black. And Men in Black and many other movies. Okay, wow. So I'm just adding that to the boggling, list of coincidences here. Well, I know the map you're talking about, the Batman map, the Gotham City map that has Sandy Hook on it. I remember seeing that map, and it actually has circled in red the area on the map that is that school, and that it has written in red something like the first strike point or something, right? Strike Zone 1. Yeah, Strike Zone 1, pointing to the school. Yeah. So people say, well, this is just, obviously an accident. It couldn't be anything more than that. But you keep piling these up, and you get a storyline that is just, absolutely boggles your mind, right? And as you wrote in your article, Mike, if somebody had said 15, 20 years ago, guess what? We're going to have airports where we're going to have basically cops strip searching you and examining your orifices. Yeah, we're going to go to break again, John. How boggling is this? Well, although I hate to interrupt such a fascinating sentence, but we'll be right back after this break. Stay with us, John. We'll continue on the Alex Jones Show.
You are listening.
Welcome to the third hour of this broadcast today on Monday, January 7th, 2013. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, filling in for Alex Jones, who is on an airplane right now headed to New York to appear on the mainstream media today. And Jon Rappoport is our guest right now. And if you're just joining us, Alex Jones was nearly arrested this morning at the Austin airport after being threatened with arrest by some TSA goons there who demanded that he take off his shoes. They knew him by name. They approached him by name, said, "Hi, Alex, take your shoes off." And I have now been informed of the reason why. Alex was hiding in his shoes the Dianne Feinstein sock puppet. And here it is. We have a copy of the Dianne Feinstein sock puppet right here in studio today. And let's see what Dianne Feinstein has to say on camera. "I'm going to raid your homes and throw flashbangs and take your guns." Yeah. All right. Sorry, John, you didn't get a chance to see that, but we actually do have a Feinstein sock puppet. And she's quite animated. Alex told me he was going to take that inside his shoes, That's the secret weapon, comedy. That is the secret weapon. He was hiding comedy in his shoes. Well, that's a crime. You can't do that. Everything that you're talking about, Mike, especially with what's happening here with Alex. Imagine this now in the future. You go to fly, and they type in your name, and they get that medical drug database that you were talking about. Right. They say, okay, here is so-and-so. We see he's taking Prozac, Zoloft. Well, he's a mental case. So we have to be very careful about this guy. We have to,
please take him in a room. We have to ask him questions, examine him, look at his papers, because now with all these databases connected, whether it's, about gun ownership, about medications, psychiatric meds, and so forth, they're just constructing one gigantic database. So at the airport or any travel checkpoint, they will be able to completely profile you in many ways that you don't even imagine, and then decide whether or not you can travel.
Well, no, let me tell you, this is a true story. James Stewart, the raw milkman from California, they profiled him. They had him flagged in the California database as a, quote, sovereign. And this is a new checkbox they have for criminals, so-called criminals. This guy, all he did is distribute milk and cheese that the state didn't like. And so they flagged him with the word sovereign. And then when they booked him into L.A. County Jail, he said one of the booking guard staff members there looked up from his computer, backed away from his desk, and said, "Oh, my God, you attack guards." And so just being flagged as a sovereign now, and then they bound him with chains on his feet and his arms, and they put him in an isolation room, a very cold room, no light, very cold, hypothermia almost. He suffered from that, starvation. I mean, they can flag you with anything now, John, and then treat you worse than you'd be treated in a third world country.
Absolutely. So if they see, okay, this guy's taking psychiatric drugs or whatever, okay, let's not let him fly. Or let's arrest him. If he causes any trouble or objects to what we're doing to him, let's provoke him, in other words, and see how he reacts, and then we'll, put him in lockup because he's a psychiatric patient. I mean, all of these things can be manipulated any way they want to manipulate it. And when they say the word sovereign, which is now a code word for them for terrorism, all they're really saying is this is an independent mind.
Yeah, right.
So we have to kill that off because that's the biggest threat to the country.
We got Dianne Feinstein wants to say something else. The sock puppet, Mr. and Mrs. America, we're gonna profile your prescription drugs and use it to take away your rights.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Has she, by the way, given up her security guards with guns?
No, they're all armed, and they're probably all on psych drugs as well. By the way, we're going to take calls when we come back. So Lori, Bill, Jason, Nick, Greg, and others, stay with us. We'll take calls when we come back in the next segment with Jon Rappoport. Stay with us here on The Alex Jones Show. We'll be right back, and we'll get more serious when we get back. Enough of these Feinstein sock puppets, okay? Get them out of here. All right, we'll be back. All right, we're continuing on The Alex Jones Show. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, editor of naturalnews.com, joined by Jon Rappoport, our guest right now, from nomorefakenews.com. And we're taking calls from people on all the issues of the day, including Alex Jones almost being arrested this morning at the Austin airport as a TSA tyrant demanded that he take off his shoes. Because I guess shoes are just too much for the globalists to bear. You can't have shoes, John. Did you know that? Not only can you not have guns, but you can't have shoes because they need to have the exclusive right to stomp on you with their boots. So you can't have shoes. Does that make any sense to you?
That's right. Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me if the world is completely insane. Yeah.
and apparently it is.
Apparently it is.
Are you up for taking calls or you got a comment first?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, let's go to Lori in West Virginia. Lori, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike and John. I'm calling in because I'm part of a farm extension. I'm a member of the farm extension, and we were trying to start a program for the farm to schools. Have you heard of that?
Not in West Virginia. I mean, just generally speaking, I've heard of those kinds of programs.
Okay, they're trying to take where we supply, those small local farmers supply food to the school kids. Well, when it first started and we had our meeting, a representative from the school, the purchaser, she brought her little price list of what she's paying the big shipping companies for food. And on there, at first, the price list seemed like, okay, we could do this. We can afford to do this. It's not going to be that great big profit, but we can do this. And then we had another meeting 4 months later, and just like in the first meeting, a dozen of eggs was going for $3 for them. The second meeting, now they're paying $1 for eggs. And the whole price list went down like that.
So it's kind of like they're trying to bankrupt the local farms then.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
A lot longer than we can, and then everybody got discouraged and said, oh, well, we can't do this. Well, anyway, another reason why I'm calling is because in the newspaper yesterday here at the Charleston Gazette, Mail. They have an article that says the FDA proposes sweeping new food safety rules for outbreaks. And in the article, it says that it's going to cost farmers $30,000 a year to implement, and food manufacturers $475 million annually to implement these programs.
Yep, it's true. Let's go to John on that with the comment, and thank you for your call, Lori, and for your question. But John, this is a big epidemic year for the flu virus, but it's hitting mostly those people who are vaccinated. That's the thing the CDC won't admit. What do you think, man?
Right. Well, sure. I mean, what better way to pump up an epidemic than to give people an unnecessary and dangerous vaccine that actually causes what you're supposedly preventing.
Yes.
And then you come in behind that and you say, wow, we have a heavy epidemic year, so everybody's got to get vaccinated.
No, you nailed it. Vaccines are a medical false flag. They create the condition that sells more vaccines that causes more of the condition that the CDC uses to declare a state of emergency to sell more vaccines. It's a total false flag.
Total false flag. And fewer people are going for it, but there's still a lot of people who are. What the caller was talking about is basically, look, if you're a gigantic Monsanto and you control huge amounts of farmland through your genetically modified seeds and so forth, and it's all industrial farming and whatever, then we'll protect you from all of these unnecessary expenses and regulations and so forth. But if you're a small farmer, we're going to find a way to put you out of business because we want to take your land and give it to the big corporations. I mean, that's what they're doing in every way possible.
Well, that's what they're doing to Mark Baker, the guest we had in the first hour from bakersgreenacres.com. Yeah, they're trying to put him out of business with an economic embargo by the USDA. Let's go to another caller, Bill in California. Thanks for calling, Bill. You're on the air with Jon Rappoport.
Well, thank you. My question for all of your viewers is, how do the constitutional patriots identify each other? After all, not
it's a secret handshake.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
No, not all police, not all soldiers are going to want to be on the gun grabbing, but we need to know how we can identify each other.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Of course, there's the obvious way, like to wear an InfoWars shirt or something, or a hat. But I think what you mean is there they are, InfoWarsStore.com. You can get some good Patriot gear, including an End the TSA T-shirt. Wonderful, good timing for today. But to answer your question, sir, I don't think there's any covert system that's known. What do you think, John?
No, unfortunately, I mean, the whole idea of being a patriot to the founding principles of the Republic is that you're out in the open about it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole idea. You know, the Bill of Rights means you don't have to hide in a closet. So you find people, they find you. You decide whether you can trust them or not. You see how much knowledge they have. Do they really understand what the basic principles of this country are all about? And do they think they're important enough to live by and defend? I mean, that's all I can say.
I think you're right. I think it just comes down to knowing your neighbors, knowing the people in your community. And like you said, caller, most police officers and law enforcement and soldiers, they are pro-Constitution. They took an oath to it, unlike the TSA, which never took any oath to anything, except maybe swearing to their paycheck. All right, let's go to another caller, Nick in New York. It looks like. Nick, you're on the air with Jon Rappoport and Mike Adams. Go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon to both you gentlemen.
You as well.
Thank you.
Yes, two quick things. First of all, Mike, the gentleman that you had on earlier when you were speaking about the farm, the pigs and all of that, my heart goes out to that gentleman. I know he's probably still listening. My question is this: how in the world, or where in what rock are these judges going to hide under if this whole thing implodes? And one of the main causes of this thing imploding is because these judges are upholding illegal laws or face color, whatever they want to call it. It's all color of law. You know, it's all illegal. And what rock are they going to hide under? Because these are the main perpetrators of the whole system falling in the direction. So, I mean,
Nick, you're right. You're right. I can only imagine that right now, American people who are true Americans are making lists of traitors. And that list is getting larger by the day, and it probably includes, court judges who are openly violating the Constitution. I think you're right. I think these lists are being made. What's going to happen to the list? I don't know. Hopefully it just means those people are voted out of office. In no way am I, condoning violence against those people. But at the very minimum, we should distribute these lists and kick these people out of office, strip them of their power. Your comments, John?
Yeah, well, they're publishing, aren't they, lists of gun owners and where they live and their addresses and everything? I mean, to me, a court of law, the origin of the idea was it's local. People are there. The citizens are there. You see a trial. You want justice. The people have presumably some degree of common sense. And now we have this system which is so remote, so complicated, so insane, that anybody with an agenda who has power can decide a case any way they want to, really. Well, and
the courts were created so that people didn't have to settle things by shooting each other.
Exactly.
But if the courts become so corrupt...
Yeah, exactly. The courts would become so corrupt.
That's all it leaves then, it seems like. What option is left? When justice is taken from the people, what option do they have left?
Nullification.
Yeah.
That's one of them.
Any follow-up comments, Nick?
Yeah, just one other thing with regard to your other presentation argument. First of all, I want to say that I completely support everything that you guys do, and your arguments, and just it just makes so much sense. And after being detoxified from all the fluoride, years of fluoride and all that through the InfoWars program, I can honestly say that my head's on straight. My question is, with regards to these people, let's say, who you said a little while ago, and I'm trying to understand your argument. You said that, it's a violation if they come after people who, have prescription drugs or, for depression, all kinds of stuff, and that yet, they will be able to get guns and stuff like that. But isn't that the case with this kid who went out and, did this horrific thing over in Connecticut where he was on drugs and then he got into his mother's case and, she had legal firearms. But so my question, how do we reconcile the two? Because the other side of the argument is, well, if you're on drugs, you shouldn't be able to.
You're exactly right about that point, and I want your comments, John, but let me throw mine in first.
Yeah, please.
I agree that people who are undergoing psychiatric care should not be allowed to purchase firearms. But the problem is, and this answers your question, caller, is how wide are they going to cast that net? Are they going to say one person who had one bottle of antidepressants at some point 10 years ago, they're denied the right? Or are they going to limit it just to the true psychopaths, devil-worshipping, drug-taking, whatever? That's who we have to limit it to. But I don't know the right answer. What are your thoughts, John?
Yeah, it's a tough issue because, look, on the one side, you've got psychiatry, which wants to bring millions and millions more people into the system where they can drug them and so on. And so as that list expands, then they can say, well, all these people can't have guns because that satisfies the gun control agenda at the same time.
Right.
So the ultimate solution from the medical point of view, to me, is you ban the drugs. You destroy that industry. You expose it completely, and you alert all citizens everywhere to never let their children see a psychiatrist, never let them take one of these psychiatric drugs, never get on one of those lists, just completely destroy that criminal poisoning industry altogether. This
is the better solution. Sorry to interrupt you, John. We're about to go to break. But yeah, to the caller, you're right, John. If we gave these children fish oil supplements or omega-3 fatty acids or trace minerals, all those things are crucial for healthy mind function. If we gave them those instead of the drugs, then they wouldn't be psychopaths. They wouldn't be devil worshippers probably because their heads would be on straight. Nutrition has a role in all of this. If you don't talk about nutrition, you aren't talking about the real cause of violence in America. Most people in the prisons have nutritional deficiencies. We'll be right back after this break.
Looking back on 2012, we ask ourselves.
All right, the caller from the last segment brought up a really good point and a good question. He said, shouldn't we deny people who are on psychiatric meds the right to own firearms? And Rappoport and I both agree that we don't want firearms in the hands of medicated psychos, but that the real answer is to just stop medicating our children and put them on nutrition instead of psychiatric drugs. That's the real answer here. Any more thoughts on that, John, before we go to the next call?
Yeah. That's the answer. The answer is looking at what creates health. Excuse me. What creates health rather than what destroys the brain.
Do you have a cough today, John? You got a little cough going on?
I do indeed.
Oh man. Are you? Did you forget your vitamin D or something?
Actually, I've been taking it, but I don't know what's going on. It's something in the air, and I have no idea what it is. But
well, it's probably the superbugs that the CDC is releasing to encourage more vaccinations.
Possibly, or maybe they're spraying today. I'm not sure, but
yeah,
I'm okay.
All right, good. Yeah, I know you're generally healthy. You'll be back on your feet in no time. But yeah, good point. We got to keep these kids healthy instead of keeping them medicated. Are you okay to take another call now?
Absolutely.
All right, let's go to Jason in Ohio. Jason, thank you for your call. You're on the air on the Alex Jones Show. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, John and Mike. How you doing today?
Doing good.
All right.
Hey, my question is, man, and I kind of had the same question as the other guy asked. I mean, kind of relevant to the same deal. And she's...
Hey, Jason, your phone is really not working. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to let you go. I apologize, but it was breaking up there. Let's go to Thomas in Texas. Thomas, you're on the air. Go ahead.
How you guys doing today?
Hey, doing good.
All right.
I just want to say that I can definitely agree with the genetically modified foods, how it is having an effect on the brain as far as, and the drugs and everything, how it's having an effect on the brain as well. But I think that we're kind of overlooking at the same time the evil and the darkness that's kind of became over the world, as well as like the United States as a whole. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you mean like this demonic influx of energy that a lot of these kids seem to be attached to? Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly. Especially just throughout the years with all the terrorist attacks, and then you relate back to the movies, and it shows, you know, before these incidents happen, boom, it was seen in a movie preview or something, and it's like, bam, it's happening. I think we got to, like, you know, start getting healthier, start cleaning our minds, start just cleaning up things, period, in this country. And
yeah, we need some exorcisms is what we need around the country.
Really?
Go ahead, John. You're a good question, caller. Good question. Go ahead, John. What are your thoughts on it?
I see this all the time when I force myself to go to the movies, which is less and less. But, you know, these films, for example, that are all about disasters, dystopian futures, horrible things going on. It used to be that when you saw movies where there were superheroes and so forth, the general impression was the good guy won. It was very kind of uplifting in a certain kind of way. And then gradually we saw this whole thing darken, where it doesn't really matter anymore in these movies who wins, because the whole overall mood is evil, dark, gloom, disaster, diabolical forces at work.
Oh, and it's cool. It's cool, right? The kids are taught that worshiping the devil is cool, or being an agent of darkness is hip, or whatever.
Exactly.
So pretty sick.
You're just programming. It's another way, along with the video games, of programming these kids' minds to accept the general darkness over everything.
Yeah.
And then to proceed from there. Well, what's going to happen?
Well, I think
nothing good, I'll tell you what.
I think the caller is hinting at this combination. You take someone who's a devil worshiper, like Adam Lanza reportedly was, you put him on psychiatric drugs, you put him on violent video games, slashers, and so on. This combination creates a monster. And then they go steal someone's gun and use it to kill children. But the gun is not the origin of the problem. The origin is all these other things that haven't been addressed and that they refuse to talk about. John, I gotta let you go. We gotta go to break, but it's been fun chatting with you today.
Always, Mike. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks for joining us, and heal up there. I know you'll get better for the next show. You've got your own superfood recipes as well.
No problem.
Thanks for joining us. Check out John's work at nomorefakenews.com. Also, I'm just about out of here. This show continues, but Aaron Dykes will be taking over the broadcast chair here in the next segment. My name's Mike Adams, the Health Ranger. If you want to read my stories, visit naturalnews.com. And I'll be back here from time to time whenever Alex asks me to sit in and host. The show continues with Aaron Dykes with quotes from patriots throughout history talking about the origins of the Second Amendment and our sacred divine right of self-defense. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up right after this break as the Alex Jones Show continues. Thank you, everybody, for your calls and for your support. I will see you on another day.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back at Infowars.com. I'm Aaron Dykes. I'm sitting in. Alex is, of course, on his way, possibly already arriving in New York to appear on Piers Morgan tonight on the CNN program, obviously to discuss the Second Amendment. If you want to tune into that, it's going to be 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, other time zones, you figure it out. But that should definitely be interesting. Now, something I want to talk about today is what is the Second Amendment? I realize I'm preaching to the choir regarding most of our audience. Many of them probably know a lot more about it than I do. But I know this much, you can't repeal the Second Amendment. You can't infringe on it through legislation. Congress, the president, can't just decide to suspend it. And there are many-fold reasons for that. They are philosophical and they are grounded in history and common sense. And I just want to talk about some of that because that is a God-given right. What is a God-given right? It means that man cannot be the arbiter of whether or not you have a right on any given day under any given climate. Now, here's from the 10th Amendment Center. Repeal of the Second Amendment would not abolish any right. And they bring up, of course, the many so-called news articles and letters to the editor that are calling for a repeal of the Second Amendment. You've seen many of them. These individuals believe that a right to own a firearm is based upon the Second Amendment, and the right will magically vanish if the amendment can be repealed. Of course, the Bill of Rights came up after the Constitution. They were proposed starting in 1787 and added by demand, then ratified by the states by 1791. By demand. Many of the states, many of the founding fathers would not approve the Constitution, would not ratify it, would not sign off on it until the Bill of Rights were added to guarantee our individual rights, to guarantee the rights of the state. They are of the utmost importance. And if you infringe on the Second Amendment, you're infringing on all of them. No one is going to stand for this, ladies and gentlemen. And the people in power know it, but we just want to put them on notice. Now, they bring up this very important point. The modern editions of the Bill of Rights typically don't contain, the very important preamble, the paragraph preceding the listing of the first 10 Bill of Rights, and there's generally a pretty good reason for that. I'm going to read that to you right now, again, from the preamble to the Bill of Rights, which itself is an addition to the Constitution. The first paragraph to that preamble, after announcing how it's from the Congress of the United States, begun and held in the city of New York on Wednesday, the 4th of March, 1789, reads, the conventions of a number of the states having at the time of their adopting the Constitution expressed a desire in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its powers that further declaratory and restrictive clauses should be added. As extending the ground of public confidence in the government will best ensure the beneficent ends of its institution. This, ladies and gentlemen, points out that the Bill of Rights was specifically added to acquiesce the demands of founding fathers who didn't want to see their new government destroyed by people greedy for power, people who would use loopholes in the Constitution to concentrate and exploit the populations. In other words, among the other rights listed in the Bill of Rights, the Second Amendment shall not be infringed. Well, one good reason why is that armed citizens make good government. Now, I'm going to read a number of quotes that refute these terrible ideas we've seen in the press from all kinds of hacks. One of the most extreme was in Vanity Fair last week from Kurt Eichenwald, whose headline was, "Let's repeal the Second Amendment." He wants to replace it with this clause: the people retain the right to keep and bear arms subject to reasonable restrictions deemed necessary by the Congress and the President to secure the lives and well-being of others. Now, this sounds similar enough to the right to keep and bear arms, and yet it completely is not. Notice again the language of this proposed hack writer from Vanity Fair. The people retain the right to keep and bear arms. Sounds good so far, but subject to reasonable restrictions deemed necessary by the Congress and the President to secure the lives and well-being of others. Reasonable restrictions means that the idea is you have no right at all. But the fact is, even if you did outright repeal the Second Amendment and replace it with legalese, lawyer language, you still can't legally suspend the Second Amendment because it's a God-given right. They talked as far back as Dante's Inferno that even, if you don't agree that there is a God or who is God or what God would want, in absentia. In absence, you should still throw to the higher powers rather than let man dictate what your rights are. And that's really what America is all about. Here's this caption right here: rights are not gifts from government. And now I'm going to move on to a number of Founding Father quotes that point out this point. Now, the Founding Fathers never agreed on much of anything. There were different factions who fought vehemently over how centralized their government should be, how much power should remain with the states, all kinds of other clauses. To what degree should we let bankers have power? What should the currency be? But I have yet to find any Founding Father. I'd love to get emails on it. Any Founding Father at all, no matter how reprehensible they are individually, who is against the right to keep and bear arms. They all seem to have backed it. Now, here is Supreme Court Justice Joseph Story, who upheld very early on the right to keep and bear arms. Quote, "The right of citizens to keep and bear arms has been justly considered as the palladium of the liberties of the Republic, since it offers a strong moral check against the usurpation and arbitrary power of the rulers, and will generally, even if they are successful in the first instance, enable the people to resist and triumph over them. It's to restrict the arbitrary power of the rulers." Never forget that. George Washington said firearms stand next in importance to the Constitution itself. They are the American people's liberty teeth and keystone under independence. Now let's juxtapose these with just a few quotes from the modern 20th century dictators. Joseph Stalin said, "One death is a tragedy. 1 million is a statistic." An anonymous American adage reads, "If guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns." Samuel Adams said, "The Constitution shall never be construed to authorize Congress to prevent the people of the United States who are peaceable citizens from keeping their own arms. Shall not be construed, shall not infringe." Now, this is a key quote right here. Tench Cox, he's not that well known of a founding father, but he was a Federalist from Pennsylvania. In 1788, he said, "Who are the militia? Are they not ourselves? Is it feared then that we shall turn over our arms, each man against his own bosom? Congress have no power to disarm the militia. Their swords and every other terrible implement of the soldier are the birthright of an American." Now, there's all this legalese debate over the Second Amendment and the wording having to do with the militia. Who are the militia? Again, from this founding father, Tench Cox, who are the militia? Are they not ourselves? They certainly are. Now, James Madison said, "The Constitution preserves the advantage of being armed, which Americans possess over the people of almost every other nation, where the governments are afraid to trust their people with arms." Joseph Stalin, on the other hand, said, "Ideas are more powerful than guns. We would not let our enemies have guns. Why should we let them have ideas?" Zbigniew Brzezinski said quite recently, "In earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people than to physically kill 1 million people. Today, it's infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control them." And of course, through democide, government-sanctioned murder, government is the number one non-natural cause of death throughout history, particularly in the 20th century. Joseph Stalin said, "Death solves all problems. No man, no problem." He also said the only real power comes out of a long rifle. Alexander Hamilton, who I'm critical of for his banking stances, even upholds the Bill of Rights, the Second Amendment. "The best we can hope for concerning the people at large is that they be properly armed." Then you've got things like the Nazi law from 1938. "Those now possessing weapons and ammunition are at once to turn them over to the local police authority. Firearms and ammunition found in a Jew's possession will be forfeited to the government without compensation. Whoever willfully or negligently violates the provisions will be punished with imprisonment and a fine." We know where things went in Nazi Germany, of course. Thomas Paine, "Arms discourage and keep the invader and plunderer in awe, and preserve order in the world as well as property. Horrible mischief would ensue were law-abiding deprived of the use of them. It is the duty of the patriot to protect his country from its government." Thomas Paine also said, and Thomas Jefferson said quite famously, "When governments fear the people, there's liberty. When the people fear the government, there's tyranny. The strongest reason for the people to retain the right and keep and bear arms is, as a last resort, to protect themselves against tyranny in government." Again, it has nothing to do about hunting, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just trying to point out how together the Founding Fathers were on the right of the Second Amendment to keep and bear arms. Benjamin Franklin sort of foretold this common era of communism, where one of the big slogans, whether it's Mao or Stalin, is turn your sword into a plowshare and basically be a slave to the government. Ben Franklin said those who beat their swords into plowshares usually end up plowing for those who didn't turn in their swords, their arms, their guns, whatever. To disarm the people is the best and most effective way to enslave them. That's the Founding Father George Mason, one of the individuals most responsible for getting the Bill of Rights instituted in the first place. Compared to disarm the people is the best and most effective way to enslave them, with what Joseph Stalin said, if the opposition disarms, well and good. If it refuses to disarm, we shall disarm it ourselves. What country can preserve its liberties if their rulers are not warned from time to time that their people preserve the spirit of resistance? Let them take arms. Thomas Jefferson. A free people ought not to be armed and disciplined, not only to be armed and disciplined, but they should have sufficient arms and ammunition to maintain a status of independence from any who might attempt to abuse them, which would include their own government. George Washington. Now, Patrick Henry is another person who was individually greatly responsible for demanding and eventually getting the Bill of Rights to preserve the rights of the people and the states. He said, quote, guard with jealous attention the public liberty. Guard it. Suspect everyone who approaches that jewel. Unfortunately, nothing will preserve it but downright force. Whenever you give up that force, you are ruined. The great object is that every man be armed. Everyone who is able might have a gun. Are we at last brought to such a humiliating and debasing degradation that we cannot be trusted with arms for our own defense? That's also Patrick Henry. And here's another Alexander Hamilton. If the representatives of the people betray their constituents, then there is no recourse left but in the exertion of that original right of self-defense, which is paramount to all positive forms of government. That's Alexander Hamilton in The Federalist, number 28. The supreme power in America cannot enforce unjust laws by the sword because the whole body of the people are armed and constitute a force superior to any bands of regular troops that can be or on any pretense raised in America. That's Noah Webster in 1787. And the whole point is they want to disarm us because they want to institute unconstitutional, arbitrary rule. They want dictatorships, whether it comes in an overt form that looks like Joseph Stalin or a friendly form where they continue to rotate presidents. Thomas Jefferson said a free people claim their right is derived from the laws of nature and not as a gift of their chief magistrate. 1774. The balance of power is the scale of peace. The same balance would be preserved were all the world destitute of arms, for all would be alike. But since some will not, others dare not lay them aside. And while a single nation refuses to lay them down, it's proper that all should keep them up. Horrid mischief would ensue were one half of the world deprived of the use of them. Thomas Paine, 1775. Mao Zedong, 1938. Chairman Mao. Political power grows out of the barrel of a gun. He said the people must understand this for the revolution, the great revolution of China to take place. To preserve liberty, it is essential that the whole body of the people always possess arms and be taught alike, especially when young, how to use them. Richard Henry Lee, 1778. The right of citizens to bear arms is just one more guarantee against arbitrary government. One more safeguard against the tyranny which now appears remote in America, but which historically has proved to be always possible. That's from 1960, Hubert Humphrey. A little bit unexpected, but nonetheless right on the money. Adolf Hitler, of course, said, or is quoted to have said in 1942, the most foolish mistake we could possibly make would be to allow the subject races to possess arms. History shows that all conquerors who have allowed their subject races to carry arms have prepared their own downfall by doing so. Why would a dictator not want an armed population? So he can run roughshod over them, so he can try to rule them. Orrin Hatch, still in the Senate, or maybe just possibly just retired. If gun laws in fact work, the sponsors of this type of legislation should have no difficulty drawing upon long list of examples of crime rates reduced by such legislation. That they cannot do so after a century and a half of trying. That they must sweep under the rug the Southern attempts at gun control in the 1870 to 1910 period, the Northeastern attempts in the 1920 to 1939 period, the attempts at both federal and state levels through 1965 and 1976. establishes the repeated, complete, and inevitable failure of gun laws to control serious crimes. And again, the Columbine school shootings happened during the assault weapons ban under Clinton. All these school shootings have taken a rise ever since they signed the gun-free school zones, and ever since all these people have been on medications, SSRIs. William Burroughs in 1991, the author, said, after a shooting spree, they always want to take the guns away from people who didn't do it. I sure as hell wouldn't want to live in a society where the only people allowed guns are the police and military. George Washington said the very atmosphere of firearms anywhere and everywhere restrains evil interference. They deserve a place of honor with all that's good. And the Second Amendment itself, of course, reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, the choice is clear here, folks. It's freedom or tyranny. Disarmament is tyranny. It's a recipe for enslavement. If we want to uphold the rest of our freedoms, we have to stand by the Second Amendment. Even if you individually, personally don't like guns, aren't comfortable around them, you should get guns and train them and learn how to use them safely so that bad things don't happen. And so there's a buffer against intruders, against robbers, and against government itself, which is very quickly becoming more tyrannical by the day. Of course, this has nothing to do with just Obama. This has been going on through Bush. It's been going on ever since 9/11, through the Patriot Act. It's been going on through Clinton, who put in the assault weapons ban. It's been going on through government, through Reagan, who was going to scale down government, even though government grew 2 or 3-fold times under his watch. It's been going on under Carter and under Ford and under Nixon. And for a long time, if nothing else, since the assassination of JFK, it's really been going on since the time that Harry Truman succeeded FDR after he took broad executive power and claimed that the buck stopped with him, the president, even though a shadow government was emerging under the 1947 National Security Act. And we've been in dire straits ever since. Do not give up your arms, people. Government democide and disarmament are the greatest threats of violence. That is a study academically at the University of Hawaii. We've communicated with R.J. Rummel, and we're looking to get an interview with him in the future. He's the one who's compiled statistics on more than 262 million deaths at the hands of government just in the 20th century alone. Mike Adams has wrote about it. Our writers at InfoWars have wrote about it, and it's something we better pay close attention to. We'll be back after this with a few more thoughts, but just remember, folks, the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, is a guarantee. It's a God-given right. It can't be given by men or taken away legitimately. Infowars.com. Tune in to Piers Morgan tonight. Alex is going to take him on and explain what the Second Amendment's really all about. Stay tuned.
Looking back on 2012, we ask ourselves, how did...
Ladies and gentlemen, the Second Amendment is in place to restrict tyranny. It's not about offensive action. It's not about enabling murders to kill more people. It's about the tendency of mankind individually and as groups to be corrupt. It's a tendency for mankind to want power, to want to hold on to power, and then to crave more power because something inherent in us is wicked. There's, of course, a lot of good as well. And the whole point that our founding fathers saw, many of them were corrupt individuals themselves, many of them were very good and brilliant people, was to balance that power, because anyone given too much power will become corrupt. There's that old adage, I forget the name of the guy off the top of my head, but power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And absolutely, that's a theme throughout history. That's why the Obama administration wants to see the assault rifle ban renewed, but even that's not good enough for them. So they want thumbprinting and registration and closing the gun show loopholes. But that's not enough either. So they're going to take executive action and use new ATF policies and Joe Biden's gun panel to figure out what they can do outside of law, outside of Congress, not waiting on even that body to legislate against the Second Amendment. Again, you can't legislate against the Second Amendment. Even if all of Congress and the president were unanimously in favor of scrapping the whole ordeal and completely disarming, that's an illegitimate law. First of all, they took an oath to uphold the Constitution and fight off all enemies, foreign and domestic, to that Constitution, not to whoever's in charge, not to whoever has the reins of power. during that season or that moment in time, but to the Constitution and Bill of Rights, upholding, enshrining our individual rights, and trying to maintain a balance of power so that nobody gets too much. Now, the entire American Revolution was based on many things, of course, but it was sparked specifically by an attempt at disarmament at Lexington and Concord on April 19th, 1775. That's over a year before July 4th, by the way. And I think really that's probably why they chose April 19th as a favorite false flag date for Waco, for Oklahoma City, to kind of send the message that maybe patriots, armed patriots, are somehow the enemy in this country. But then there's that little wink of the eye, that underlying message that government has come to try to disarm you on April 19th, as it seemingly always does. Now, here's a letter dated April 18th from Thomas Gage of the British military to Lieutenant Colonel Smith, 10th Regiment, on foot. Sir, having received intelligence that a quantity of ammunition, provisions, artillery, tents, and small arms has been collected at Concord for a vowed purpose of raising and supporting a rebellion against His Majesty, you will march with me to the corps of grenadiers and light infantry, put under your command with the utmost expedition and secrecy to Concord, where you will seize and destroy all artillery, ammunition, provisions, tents, small arms, and all military stores, whatever. But you will take care that the soldiers do not plunder the inhabitants or hurt private property. You have a draft of Concord on which is marked the houses, barns, etc., which contain the above military stores. You will order of trunnion to be knocked off each gun, but if it is found impractical on any, they must be spiked and the carriages destroyed. The powder and flour must be shook out of all the barrels into the river, the tents burnt, the pork and beef destroyed in the best way you can devise. And the men may put balls of lead into their pockets, throwing them by degrees into ponds, ditches, etc., but no quantity together, so that they may be recovered afterwards. If you meet any brass artillery, and it goes on from there. That letter, that action of disarmament sparked the American Revolution, because you should not try to disarm the militia. They are legitimate people armed to restrict an overreach of power. There were many other abuses, of course, and we must keep that in mind. Tyrannical government is not welcome in the United States. Let's never give in. Let's defend the Second Amendment. Alex Jones, CNN, Piers Morgan, tonight, 8 p.m. Central. Nightly News tonight will cover the TSA.
Thank you for listening to GC.